This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team MARTEK Hour, Joe MARTEK.
You see what? But wait a minute. You waited too long. You pushed the button. You should have given me the finger before you pushed the button. Well, today our producer is the station owner's husband, and I asked her earlier on I said, how good is Greg at pushing buttons? And she said, I don't want to talk about it. So, Greg, I don't know if that means you're not trainable or what.
So do we have a guest here?
Should we have
a guest in the studio?
A guest in the studio?
As long as I'm not a ghost.
Yeah.
You were for a few weeks.
I felt a little ghosty there for a while.
I'm telling you. Listen, it's over a month now with the two conditions, right?
I figured right now, Joseph, as of like right now, I've got about 800 hours in this trilogy.
Wow.
Between going to doctors, being in the hospitals, going for checkups, this and that, missing work.
You know how many Mercedes you paid for?
A lot. But, I'm here.
Well, the number one thing when you got the sepsis,
that was close to death.
That was listen, what you did to yourself with this new one.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. It's a family show, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but the bottom line was this. It's surgery that the doctor said, hey, eventually you're probably going to have it. It's not like a real super, super important thing right now, but while I'm quasi young enough, healthy enough, strong enough to get it behind me, I'm getting it behind me.
Well, I had a buddy of mine, a fellow boater, who's another old guy like me, and he's got a neighbor that is literally 98 years old who just got a new hip. Hip surgery is extremely traumatic.
Of course.
And the fact that he got this surgery, he was healthy enough to get it. Because a lot of times doctors would say, no, we can't do it because your odds are you're going to die. I'm sure he had to sign every piece of paper in the world to say if he dies, it's not his fault.
Well, not to get too far off track, but do you remember when Obama was running for president and that lady asked him at one of those, I guess like a town hall meeting, and explained to him the story about her mother who had some major things happen and how life was so vibrant for her, and she asked him, if we make these changes in healthcare, is she going to still be able to get that type of coverage in the future? And he basically, in my opinion, said, I don't think so. And so those are things we have to think about as we have an aging population here in our part of the country. Is if healthcare changes, are they going to divvy up who gets what?
Yeah.
Would a 96-year-old guy in the future, would they say, hey, we'd love to get it for you, but you're 96 years old,
expendable.
We're not going to do that for you.
Yeah, I've got a next-door neighbor that needs lungs, and, he's got this hose that goes wherever he goes attached to oxygen, but he's in his 70s, even though they put him high up on the list, quote. His wife and I have talked, and I said, the odds are not too good he's ever going to get one because...
Well, life is a precious gift from God, no matter what age you are.
Right.
And, I know they try to, I guess, distribute things. Here would be my plan if I was king for the day. Mm-hmm. Here's what I would say. I would think we would have plenty of available organs and limbs and eyes and lungs and all the things that people are waiting for if they paid your estate for your stuff.
Yeah.
Because what they do now, the only people who gets paid is the hospital.
Right.
And you donate your stuff.
Right.
But if everybody knew, hey, if upon my death, my family will get X dollars. I might as well not take it to the grave with me like most people do.
Yeah.
I might as well go ahead and donate it,
Well,
and my
they
family
were-
gets
So are
something.
you an organ donor?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
So
yeah.
am I.
Yeah, most people, I think, especially us
No,
old.
they're not.
No.
They are not,
It's very.
Joseph.
It's a small percentage.
But if you were to say, hey, upon your death, when we harvest your organs,
Right.
your family will also participate in some of the financial
Yeah.
payment, I think everybody would line up to do it.
Well, they had this, I think it was a 60-minute show a few years ago where, they were actually selling organs overseas, harvesting them, and people were making
They
them.
were stealing them, you meant, and then selling them.
Well, yeah, they were selling them. They
What's
were
the old say?
harvesting
When you wake up in an ice pack
and you're missing something.
tub, you're in trouble because they've taken some parts.
340-1590, 340-1590.
That's a mob thing,
This
isn't
is
it?
the Team MARTEK show, better known as the Dan and Joe show. And our buddy Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, who's sitting here
I
right
think
now.
Alan's going to show up.
Alan. I hear Alan coming. And Victoria's coming too, supposedly. But, hey, Alan is our special guest member. Oh, that's right. You haven't seen Alan since they recoifed him. He didn't. He's quit combing his hair again. But the bottom line is, 2 weeks ago or last week, he had a haircut and he looked 20 years younger.
Now, see, if I was Alan, I would get dreadlocks.
Dreadlocks.
I would never have to comb them again, and they would always be in fashion.
Well, the only problem with dreadlocks is you have to wash them once every couple of years.
Every couple years.
Well, Alan is, for those of you that don't know, is a retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, and he's been a guest member now for the last,
Couple years?
2 or 3 years, right, Alan? How long has it been?
About 3.5 now.
No kidding. Hey, what'd you think of the market yesterday?
Well, it was a technical rally, it looks like, because we opened up 130 points, but we're up about 80 at the moment. So
Yesterday, though.
well, yesterday was just the Fed speak. Powell said he may lower interest rates.
You know what I get a kick out of, because I have one particular client. If he's listening to this show today, Alan, we should pay this guy $100,000 a year, because he times it perfectly every single time when to get in and when to get out in reverse.
So when he gets in, it's time to get out.
When he gets in, it's time to get out. When he gets out, it's time to get in. So Monday, he got out.
So it's the time to get in.
So he missed. What happens is, when it's mutual funds, you can't get out
Till
until
the end
4
of the
o'clock
day.
at the end of the day. So when you place the order to get out, you're getting out in the end of the day. And anyway,
So do you use this guy as a barometer?
that's what I said. I said, I'm sure he if he's not listening to the show right now, he's throwing darts at me.
Does he even know who he is?
Yeah, right.
The thing is, Joe, is you're an advisor of people,
Right.
but it's their money, so you could talk to them until you're blue in the face about staying in, but if they tell you and give you an order, I want out, you've got to execute
That's what
that
I do.
order.
And literally, you hit it right on the nutshell. In fact, I talked to him on Friday, and he said, okay, I want to get out, Joe. So I called in the order on Friday, which means it won't happen until Monday, which obviously it happened on Monday. If I call it in on Monday, it'll happen on Tuesday with mutual funds, right?
Right.
Which you and I don't like. ETFs, exchange-traded funds, we do like, because you can trade instantly rather than in arrears, because mutual funds only trade at 4 o'clock or the close of business every day. So anyway, poor Ron, I'm telling you what, I'm surprised he hasn't called me. Say, Joe, you forgot to take me out, right? I mean, that's what I expect him to call. I said, no, Ron, I did what you said. He says, Joe, don't you know better than to listen to me? And Alan, this is another one I've had more than once. A client would call me and say, Joe, why didn't you make me put more money in? When everything was going good, let's go. But as of this morning, do you know what the S&P 500 is up so far this year?
About 6-7%.
12.
12%.
I'm here. Hey, listen, I look at you as my hero. You're losing ground quickly.
I am.
Because
Right.
we're still up 12% as of yesterday.
From the first of the year.
From the first of the year, the S&P 500. So, and I will talk to you a little bit.
Really, with some of the drops that we've had?
Yep. See, what happens is a lot of the drops were tiny little dribbles. There was nothing dramatic. The Dow looks
400 or 600 points is
well. Let's just
hardly a dribble.
but that's 2% on the Dow.
Okay, no, you're right.
So it's percentage-wise, it's not. See, what happens is if you had 100 and you lost 4%, that's 4, right? When you have 25,000, 2% is 500.
Hey,
So-
a dribble is a dribble. I understand.
Is that your new nickname?
Yeah,
That's
he's,
right.
and he's got a new meaning.
That's right.
You got
that's
a
right.
new meaning. Well, old guys.
Dribbling Dan. Oh, yeah.
One of the perks of getting old, right?
Hey, better listen. I've always said this. Not all my friends had the privilege to get old.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know what? It's part of what you do.
It's one of the aggravations of life. I have to read the obits every day because I've got,
Make sure you're not in there, Joe.
well, one, you don't want to see yourself in there, and number two, it's embarrassing when you call a client of yours that died. 'Cause you're supposed to know this ahead of time. So I try to watch and make sure that, but what happens, we're all going to die. It's not a big deal. But, when you get a lot of people in their 70s and 80s, let's face it, I figure 65 is a given. You should get that. As soon as you're over 65, you're in overtime.
That's why you get your
Over
Social
70, you're in
Security
double
then.
overtime.
They figure you should be
75,
dead
you're
by
in
then.
triple overtime. The game's going at 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't know what's going to happen, right?
Well, because of the game, that's why I was late today. I'm really down today, but I congratulate the Miami Marlins. They beat the Milwaukee Brewers last night, 16-0.
Milwaukee, is that a team?
That sounds like a beating.
That's a first-place team that got beat by a last-place team, 16-0.
Any one game. I guess the pitcher was pretty good, huh?
Oh, the pitcher for Miami was terrific.
Had to be awesome. It's a interesting journey, this journey of life, but many things happen. Let me just regroup here for a second. Back in 2004, when Dan and I were much younger
and healthier.
weren't dribbling yet, and Greg Fasula, we got together and said, let's start doing radio shows, and we did. And we didn't have one clue that we'd be doing them for more than a month or 2 months. We didn't really have any idea how long we'd be doing them. And here it is, 15 years later, we're still doing radio shows. The concept was very simple for the three of us. Gregory, an attorney, he had his area of expertise. Dan, as an independent, quote, insurance agent, had his area of expertise. And Joe MARTEK, financial advisor, had his area of expertise. So we could answer questions for people that each did not know the answer to, even though we may have a vague idea.
We knew enough to be dangerous, Joe.
But then each area of expertise was important. Then, over a period of time, we also added Ms. Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, the hardest working realtor known, made demand, maybe the hardest working person known, period. Most credible. This woman
She's here, right?
Well, she called and she's on her way.
She's here in spirit.
We have an empty chair.
We have an empty.
It's a
that that reminds me
formation.
of the traveling Wilburys. Do you remember
Traveling
that last
Wilburys.
shot? Come on, Greg. Do you remember that one? Do you?
Most people don't even know who that is, Joe.
Do you remember?
I
The last
do
shot?
remember. That's
okay.
the problem.
Tell me what the show.
No, go for it.
No. Come on. You
tell
said
us.
you remember. Tell me.
I vaguely remember, but go tell us.
What happened is the Traveling Wilburys, while they were making this tape, they had 5 musicians that were extremely famous, which included Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne.
Who's Tom Petty?
Who's Tom Petty? Remember, a local boy here.
Out of Gainesville.
That's what I said. Who's Tom Petty? Nobody's ever heard of Gainesville either.
Yeah, right. And then also Bob Dylan, and who was the Beatle? George Harrison.
Uh-huh.
So they're making this album, but instead of using their real names, they made up names like Lefty and whatever name was. They had pseudonyms when they named these songs, and they named their album the Traveling Wilburys. Well, during the course of making it, Roy Orbison died.
That's right.
And so the last shot they have, they're doing End of the line, a song, and they've got a rocking chair that's empty that was moving, and that was Roy Orbison.
Love it.
Yeah, it was one of the better. I have watched that CD, I can't tell you, maybe 100 times over the years. You know, when I used to go down to the Keys on my boat and take a buddy of mine, I always played that album on the way down, and End of the Line was always my favorite one. Do you remember all I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
You know, it's funny you say that as far as big names and musicians. John Sebastian.
Yeah.
When he started this group, Love and Spoonful, well, there was no group.
Right.
He was a studio musician. So when it all started, he was talking to Casey Kasem one day, and he said, "What the heck do I do?" He said, "Well, you better form a group because your song is number one." And you know, it was and so.
Sounds like the Monkees, huh?
Calls Capitol Records. Same situation with those guys. And he called Capitol Records. They got 4 other guys. Bingo.
Studio musicians, put them all together. Bam, you're in.
Well, Glenn Campbell was a studio musician.
Yeah. 340-1590, 340. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. You know? How did that happen?
Traveling
How old are
Wilburys.
you now, Joe?
Yeah, right, 104.
There's your answer.
Then, last member of the group was Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, which hand in glove with Victoria. In fact, I was talking to a prospect yesterday, who I need to talk to you about after the show. Look at Victoria Loyd sneaking in, but hey, I was just talking about. In fact, you should come over. No, Alan should go that way, and you should come this way, Vic.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, you're better looking than Alan, even though he got a haircut. You know,
That's why I call ahead of time to get it ready.
We didn't trust you.
Oh, God, I'll tell you.
Well, you know, sometimes you get sidetracked
I
by
did talk to a woman, though. It wasn't a man, so I thought it would happen.
you got a microphone here. Move
Right
it.
here.
Move
Yeah,
it.
we're good.
Okay,
Make
great.
sure you're close enough where you can talk, and then we go on.
I can't see. It was so bright outside. You know, you're in the room.
You're not
can't
even wearing
see.
your blonde wig today.
I know, but I'm still. I'll tell you. I'm glad you're here, Dan. I got some questions about
Good.
insurance.
Well, what's your?
I may be able to answer them. We'll see.
Now's a good time to ask.
Okay, you ready?
340-1590. You can call now, man.
Yeah, call in, everybody, because this is important. So now a lot of the
That way you don't have to talk. We can take a call. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay,
We're
go ahead.
Perfect. So a lot of the insurance companies are coming now to people's homes to say, let me take pictures of the plumbing and the electrical and, make sure that your house is in good shape.
Yep.
So doing that and keeping that in mind, let's say they come to your home and they say, okay, now you need a new roof or your plumbing needs to be updated. They request all these things, which could cost thousands of dollars.
That's true.
Okay, so a lot of people can't afford that.
Okay.
So what do they do in that situation if they do that? I mean, what if they won't renew your policy? Is anybody else going to renew that policy?
Of course.
How do you know?
No, not necessarily. Here's what you have to understand. Depending on the issue and depending on the company, okay, many companies do not go into your house at all. But there are carriers that go into your home and they look for potential claims such as, let's say you have rusty valves where your toilets get their water supply. Let's suppose you have other areas like where your washing machine discharge line, they'd like it to be steel. One of the big ones would be your hot water heater. So like one of the carriers that we actually have, when they go in and they do your inspection on the interior and they find these items, they will pay up to, the insurance company will pay up to $400 to replace these items. All right. Not every company does that, but
I've never heard of this.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up, because this is what's happening.
Well, I'm just trying to
we're
tell you
trying
that
to tell
they
you.
will pay up to $400 to replace it. Now, we all know that you can't replace your hot water heater for $400.
$1,000.
All right, but if you've got a rusty water heater that's 15 years old, they don't want your water heater to rupture when they should be replaced. So they're willing to help you
Replace it.
So is that per item? So
No, it's a total. It's a total of $400.
well, because there's going to be more than one issue.
Then you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to fix your stuff. They're not going to buy, as an insurance company, they're not going to buy a future claim waiting to happen.
What about the pool, the state? If they don't qualify for, let's say.
Well, the state is just as picky. I mean, the insurance companies are not wanting to buy a policy, which is what they're doing. They're placing a bet. They're saying, we're betting you're not going to have a claim.
Right.
And you're saying, here's my money, here's my bet, I think I'm going to have a claim. And the insurance companies are saying, these things are substandard. Your roof shingles are peeling up. Your hot water heater's on the verge of rupturing. It's bubbling down. There's rust coming down the side. Your toilet lines
Sounds like an old man to
have
me.
rust. If you try to turn them off, they're going to ring off in your hand.
They are, and it does happen a lot.
So we want you to fix those things. Now, we have some companies that'll say to you, okay, we won't sell you a traditional HO3 homeowner policy. We will sell you a dwelling fire policy that excludes water or excludes this or excludes that. And when you fix it, we'll go ahead and get you a different policy.
Okay,
Now,
so is it more money because of that? Because it seems to be a higher risk.
A lot of times it's not as expensive as a regular HO3 homeowner policy because it excludes many of the things that an HO3 homeowner policy covers.
Right.
So they exclude these items, reduces the price, but it certainly reduces your coverage. So when you have a hurricane and your roof is now blown off because the shingles
There's no water damage.
Yeah.
They won't do it, period.
They won't do it.
Because you're excluding all water
Well, you
damage,
got
not
another-
just from plumbing or
Don't you have another problem, Dan? What's called if there's a lender?
Well, the lender is going to have to agree.
Yeah. So then what happened? The lender puts single purpose coverage on it if you don't have it, right?
Lender can put coverage on it just to cover the note. They
Yeah,
don't,
to
they
cover
don't
the
cover
note.
And
the,
how do they know, though? Because in
Well,
a lot
it-
of situations, because you're doing it, I mean, and you
they
pay
do
it
know.
because of
If you're
escrow.
non-renewed, a notice.
No,
goes
you'll
to-
renew. But he's saying that it'll have exclusions.
Well, a good question, Dan.
Well, if I have a lender that has certain requirements, then I could not do that. So it's going to depend on the requirements of the lender.
But I understand that. But the lender doesn't really look at every policy if they
So
know.
how does a lender even know?
Well, because you're paying it in escrow, so they pay your taxes and your insurance.
I understand that.
So
But
you,
I don't think
They
they
have-
read
they
every
ha-
policy.
They don't look at policies.
They
though.
don't may
well,
not.
you have to go back in time and remember that every policy, every home policy, was a dwelling fire policy at one time. There was no HO3. It was a dwelling fire policy. It covered fire and lightning. Over time, the industry added extra coverages. We're going to cover this. We're going to cover liability. We're going to cover water. We're going to cover hail. We're going to cover vandalism. There's a lot of things that are built into that policy. It's a package that it didn't start out that way. Most lenders will agree to a dwelling fire. It's just like if you, let's say you bought a wonderful home on the water, and that land is worth $1 million, and the house is worth $500. And so now you got a bank that wants $1.5 million in insurance. Well, we're not going to do that because the house isn't worth $1.5 million. 9 times out of 10, the lender will agree to allow the policy to be written only for what the house is worth and exclude the land values.
Which they should anyway, because they don't cover land value anyway.
Right, right.
It should, but
But they go on the tax records to find value. I understand how they do it.
so there's a lot of things
However,
we
you
can
can
do.
That's how they make
you can-
extra money,
But you
though.
can go back to the lender, and because listen, lenders are. How do I phrase this right? These are monster companies. There's not one guy sitting there making a decision.
But
They
if
have-
you're doing that, Joe, you have to be prepared in many cases for a battle because
Yeah.
chances are the first person you talk to and you say, hey, I got $1 million or $1.2 million a mortgage, but I only want to insure the house for $500,000 because that's all it's worth. The first person you talk to probably doesn't have the authority to do that.
Of course not. Right.
You're going to have to climb your way up to find someone who understands logically we're only insuring the house.
Right.
The house is worth $500,000, and that's what the homeowner policy should be for.
Dan, if your $500,000 home is near the water, don't you then need 2 insurance policies, one for the house and one for flood insurance for the land?
Depending on how it's elevated. I can take you to places over in Sewell's Point that are real close to water, but they're up so high on this bluff but it's going to take a tidal surge.
You're 20 feet up.
So it probably won't happen. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I'd recommend it because you're close. If you live over there in, say, Sailfish Point, it's just a big sandbar out there at the tip of the island.
Right.
Maybe you should consider it.
Yeah.
Usually the lender is the one who calls the shots, who says, you're in flood zone X, and if you want this mortgage, you're going to have to get flood insurance as well. Now, there are federal flood policies, and there are many insurance companies that also sell flood insurance on a private basis. Okay, I just had a carrier yesterday, which I thought was an excellent point. Now, it doesn't really affect us that much, but if you live in what's called the wind pool, all right, and the wind pool is where most insurance companies will not sell wind coverage, so you have to go to the state of Florida through Citizens to get it. I have a carrier that now says if you're in the wind pool, we'll include wind. You don't have to have two policies. Now, that's big news, Palm Beach County South, because everything east, and hear this carefully, everything east of I-95 from Palm Beach County South is in the wind pool. So as you're going down I-95, if you look to the east, every house and every building there is in the wind pool. That's a big change for them. Here in our county, the only wind pool we have is Hutchinson Island. And actually, Martin County has no wind pool. For some reason, years ago, they never chose to participate in it.
Well, wait a minute. They've got Hutchinson Island in Martin County as well.
Doesn't matter. It's a county. It's the
a
county
countywide
line
thing.
It's just like driving down A1A. Everything in Martin County is what? 4 stories. You get just a little bit east of Jensen Beach. Guess what? Those condos grow and grow.
County line.
That's St. Lucie County.
Yep, county line.
So if you're in St. Lucie County and you're in the wind pool, I got a carrier that will take care of that, included in the policy. So you don't have to have two policies, one with the private market and one with Citizens.
340-1590, 340-1590. That is our number. You can call.
And that's a big change.
They used to redline us business-wise because our WPSL transmitter
East of US 1?
is like 200 yards east of US 1.
Yeah.
Well, that is semi-old thinking.
I thought that was the STU transmitter.
No, STU's right on the water.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
At the Roosevelt Bridge.
That's right on the
And you
water.
got to
right?
remember, the reason they did that is because that was an easy boundary line.
I got it, yeah. I've been here.
It makes no sense because those of us who've lived here for a long time know that US 1 in some areas is quite far from the water.
Yeah.
And on some areas it's just a mile or so from the water. So to arbitrarily say US 1 is the line as though the hurricane stops at US 1 is kind of foolish thinking, but they used it because they had to come up with something. All right, now they use like a GPS modeling system, and some carriers say, hey, we want you to be 10 miles from the ocean. Some companies say, we want you to be X miles east of the west bank of the intercoastal. So,
Which is here.
That's right.
And it was funny. I was joking with Larry Lee about it, and he said, you realize where you are now in Fort Pierce is closer to the Indian River than your Port St. Lucie tower, which is right on US 1.
Yeah.
It's hard to comprehend because US 1 is so far east of us, but the river has
the way the river meanders,
runs,
it meanders.
Yeah.
And so they don't, at one time, like you said, yes, it was US 1 because that was an easy boundary line. Now they just use their computer and they go, it's 500 feet short. You got to go somewhere else. And it's very frustrating for us as agents because when I think of certain areas, I think it's a long way from the ocean, but some companies don't use the ocean; they use the intercoastal as the water source. So it's
Well, they lifted my area. I'm east of US 1,
right.
which you are also
Sure.
in Ballantrae, but they lifted it. It's not a flood zone anymore.
Yeah. So
That's been years and years ago.
I mean, it's.
I still have it, flood insurance, just in case.
I always carried flood insurance even when it wasn't required because
It used to be
it can happen.
$250. Now it's $450.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just gone up, and that's not even required insurance.
Yeah, very interesting. Ran into a lady who was talking flood insurance at the Hurricane Expo the other day, and she said it's a private company. Now, I thought there was only federal flood insurance.
Well, that's
that,
changed recently.
That used to be the case, but as you may recall, over the last, say, 10 years, there have been many cases when the federal government did not fund it, and it shut down. And I mean, we're all thinking, yeah, they're gonna redo it, but in the meantime, what do I do? So you had private industry that stepped up and said, okay, we're gonna offer it. So we do have carriers that.
So it is legit then.
Oh,
Yes.
Private.
Yeah.
You actually have some companies that will buy your entire deductible, your wind deductible. We actually have a couple of carriers right now that if you want, I can take your hurricane deductible. Let's suppose your hurricane deductible is 5% and you have a $200,000 house.
That's $10,000.
That's $10,000. Yeah. I got a company that'll make your deductible $500.
A straight 500,
Straight
no matter what, not a
500.
2%
No,
or 5.
straight 500.
You got to pay for, obviously, there's a cost for that insurance.
So is it more money?
Well,
a premium?
not necessarily. Not
Okay.
necessarily. I mean,
But it's a separate company.
Do you know what company?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, it's.
And he's not going to tell
It's-
you.
I know.
It's a kind of a clue here. Call Dan Warren
Well, wait a minute. My
Insurance.
homeowner's insurance is with him anyway. So.
Well, you should call because this is new to me as of yesterday.
Wow.
I had a rep come in yesterday, and this is a major company.
Well, of course. See, I knew
This-
you would have told me if it
yeah.
wasn't just yesterday.
This is not like a local company or regional company. This is a national company.
And they're good.
340-1590, 340-1590, and we got our one faithful listener calling us.
Who
Hey,
is it?
Mike, it's Joe MARTEK. You're on the radio.
Yes, I'm always listening. Today I'm calling wondering about if you could give some information to us out here about timeshares. My older brother and his wife have had a timeshare at Marathon for several years, and Irma badly damaged it, and they haven't been able to occupy in their little special week for 2 years, and they keep right on paying, and in fact are going to pay an assessment from what they're hearing. I don't understand why something could take that long to repair, but that's a whole other discussion. What can you tell me about timeshares? Is there any way out of them? I wonder anything about it that I could share with them.
There absolutely is a way now. There's 2 or 3 or 5 companies out there that you pay a fee to, and they will guarantee to get people out of the timeshare with no liability. Now, what happened, I don't know the names of the companies, but you could go online and put in just how do I get out of my timeshare in a search engine, and 2 or 3 companies will come up. And what happened is supposedly one particular guy went through and challenged it and went to court and won, which then set precedent, which then allows people to default, let's say, and get out of without liability. So there comes the magic thing. So a lot of people want to get out of their timeshares, but obviously if they do, they have a lien or a credit or a judgment or something against it. But there's a way to do it, supposedly. So go online and just put that in. How do I get out of my timeshare?
Well, the funny thing is, they love it so much, and they don't want to get out of it. I guess.
But can't they do their exchange? They've got an exchange program. Aren't they allowed to exchange?
Go to another
And go to another
timeshare.
resort?
See, they probably have what's called RCI or
I, Interval
There's-
International
Yeah, there's 2 different
Resort. But there's more than 2 now.
ones. Are there?
Yes.
Anyway, they literally allow you to switch your week to some other place. And it may be on the same island, in Marathon. I have no clue. But
There are many over there.
But if the unit you have that you want to switch is not occupiable, can you switch a non-occupiable unit for one that is occupiable?
Well, you're supposed to have something that you could switch, which is at a desirable time. So that's a good question.
good question.
Yes.
I didn't think about that, Vic.
But that's true. It is
Well,
a good question.
Hey, the reality is this, that obviously the insurance company that was on that thing is not happy, And somehow or other, the association, hopefully they did pay, because that's their
For
responsibility.
their insurance.
Have they been down there to see if any work's been done on it?
Great question. No, I don't think so. They're up in North Carolina.
Sounds like a good mission for you, brother.
Hey, listen.
Yes.
You know, you
Well-
got listen. Tell,
Well, you can Google the area, and kind of go down the street and
But
see
you
if they've
can't
done
fish
any.
it if you Google it. I'd go down there and fish it and check it out.
well, the key is this.
And I'm a wildlife rehabber. I basically have a farm going in my condominium, so I'm not.
We've heard those birds before.
I bet you have. Another little topic, quick answer, I hope. I'm so out of touch with news locally. Does anyone know which developer is taking on the big King project up North Fort Pierce where we might have a Marriott coming? Does anyone know that answer?
There are two. One is Brightline, or what do they call it, Virgin Train?
Virgin or whatever.
And then the other was another developer, and I'm not sure which one the county's
Director
picking.
or-
No,
I've
Director.
heard the names.
Director is the company that won the dock space, basically.
Okay, good.
That's the high income yacht rehab from
That sounds good to me. I
At the
like
port.
that.
That'll be done at
from
the port.
New York and Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, they're the ones that have that. But then there is a second group. It's like SB or somebody like that. You could look at it on TC Palm. The article's there.
Are they doing
Okay.
the Tiki Hut too? The restaurant?
No, that's going to be the I can't.
Different
think of the name.
developer, right?
Yeah, it's a different developer.
But they're
and
redoing it.
Yeah, tearing
Yeah.
it down and starting over again.
They are
Yeah.
going to tear it all down.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
saw that
And
the whole
it's
roof is in.
Krabby's out of Tampa.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right, Krabby's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to build
Yeah.
something
It's
there.
going to be great.
Hey,
Well, I think it'd be a great thing for Fort Pierce, people coming from north to south through US 1 to see a Marriott. I mean, how well could that make Fort Pierce?
Yeah, 120
We needed
rooms.
Something like that.
Yeah, 120 room Marriott plus condos overlooking the port or overlooking the yacht basin. Yeah, it's going to be nice.
I
Absolutely.
think that's one I hope for rather than Virgin Train. For one thing, there's a second street between the tracks and that property. There'd be a lot of hiking for people, it seems to me, if they do turn it into a train station. So,
Train station would not be on that property. It'll be
Oh,
close,
I hope you're right.
but it's not going to be there.
Okay, good news. All right, well, a very informative show. Thank you all.
hey,
Thank
Mike,
you.
Always.
these are good questions to come up because luckily we had the station owner's husband here working today, and
Yes.
he does know something.
That's right.
This is
Well, I
very.
was listening last week that I was out poling a little boat out North Indian River. I love doing that. It doesn't have a motor, and I don't use a paddle. I use a pole and stay in shallow water. It's one of those polystyrene boats that you can see completely through to the bottom.
So
Fascinating.
I guess you're a shirt-tail relative of Pocahontas, who's running for
Yeah.
president, right?
Barefoot, just long pants. You'd have to see me. I look like a real throwback out there.
There
I
you
got to
go.
burn, though. I won't do that again for a while.
Yeah.
That's all right. Joe's got a see-through boat too.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but
Hey, Mike, boaters, we dance to our own drummer, but we love our drum.
Yes, well, you all come through well, loud and clear out on that water with my little radio.
There you go. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for
Thank
calling, my
you.
man, and thanks for listening.
Okay, till next time. Bye now.
340-1590, 340-1590.
Joe, if I can talk for a moment about one of our regular callers who's not going to call today, Bulldog. He's going to find out what his condition is regarding his tongue, hopefully. And Bulldog asked me to pass on some information that would be helpful to veterans, and I'd like to do that. And the information is that the VA is changing a program where you won't have to go through hoops and ladders and things to get approval to see your non-VA doctor. And Bulldog's mission is to educate people, and he asked me to give out his email number to or email so people can contact him for more information. So his email is Robert Buys, B-U-Y-S, 1004 at Comcast.net. I'll say it one more time. Robert Buys 1004 at Comcast.net. And Bulldog, we're all praying for you, and we hope that things turn out extremely well for you.
Amen. 340-1590, 340-1590. So, Ms. Victoria Loyd, do we have some exciting news in the real estate market today?
Well, the market's still plugging and going, and new construction's going up all the time.
Yes,
and
it is.
Yeah, every
Lot of
time
new
you turn
construction.
around.
Yeah.
I had one person that bought several lots that I had listed, and for a builder he works for many builders.
Uh-huh.
And so they're still building new construction, but on the other hand, there's still pre-existing homes, as we talked about before, that are still at wonderful values. I mean, wonderful values.
And interest rates, my golly, it's hard to imagine how far down they've gone now.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's amazing. When I look at properties that are down south, talk about Fort Lauderdale area.
Yeah.
Those people are selling their gut outs. You literally, I mean, it had caught on fire, and they're in 1930s and 50s, and they're selling them for $300,000 and saying it's a great value, and you can get $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for them. And we sell those homes under $200,000 here,
Yep.
and they're in perfect condition and
Yeah.
larger.
Yeah,
It-
yeah.
When you see the values, if people could see it, the problem is we've been spoiled for too long, Joe. We've all seen those prices go up and down,
Sure.
and we go, oh my God, that's so expensive.
Yeah.
People up north go, my gosh, I want 5 of those.
Yeah.
They're so
Yeah,
cheap.
absolutely.
And because they are.
Well, hey, Florida's a gift. I mean, I thank God every day. Let me tell you, this is, just think I could live in Maryland next to a buffle-headed Italian woman.
That's
What a-
right.
what a
Yeah,
terrible
my good
place
old
to-
Maryland place. Yeah.
But, the property values have come up, I think 12%, if I'm not mistaken, from last year already.
And they should.
And depending on where your location
Yeah.
was, it could have been a lot higher than that.
Yeah.
So, the timing is excellent to consider an investment in real estate here.
Well, it's nice for an investment, and we're getting calls all the time, and I don't like these calls where it's like, oh, do you want to sell your house? We've got investors who want to buy.
Oh, yeah, I get those
I
all the
don't
time.
want to have people just come to buy properties up to take advantage of other people. I want people to come in here that truly want to live in this community and build their family
Sure,
and their
sure.
friends and enjoy what they have and get the good value. Because if you keep selling these properties to these investors where they buy low, they think that they're going to get a good price because they always say, oh, you don't have to pay a commission. You don't have to, they're just telling you those things, and they're really buying very much undervalue, and they're selling them higher. So
Absolutely.
then it's going to change all the values where people aren't going to be able to afford properties around here. So think twice before you make these moves.
Yeah.
340-1593.
I don't know if an investor wants to walk in here with about $40 million.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you.
Show me the money.
You know,
Show me
you
the
know, what,
money.
you know what the odds of that are happening, Greg? I hate to tell you.
Yeah, I know. Slim left
Well,
out.
we'll talk. We'll do like Bill did when he bought the radio show before in Stewart. You'll come in and buy it very low, and sell it high.
Yeah, right. What do you mean come in with what more
Like
than you want?
300,000.
Not going to happen.
Well, how about the millage rate? I mean, I saw where the millage in St. Lucie County is one of the highest in the state.
Actually, it is.
It is
Yeah.
the highest in the
It's-
state.
it's-
Well,
it's
I
very-
wanted you to say that, not me.
But however,
understand why.
one of the
I really don't, because when we have such huge millage rates that are so much higher than counties that have tremendous things for the population to enjoy, and we don't even have a port in Port St. Lucie. I mean, we're starting to get maybe like something, but
Yeah,
where does all the money go?
I just think their logic is that our people are buying properties so low, they're trying to raise the millage up so they can try to equal out the tax
That's what I was
base.
trying to go with. If your lot's assessed, let's say for $15,000 here, but it's that same lot is $30,000 one county away. Well, the millage rate, if it was the same, that county's generating twice as much money.
That's correct.
So St. Lucie County is a bargain.
It still
So-
is, and that's what people aren't understanding.
Yeah.
And I tell them, please don't do that. Now, the other thing is we talked about before is our portability.
Yeah.
So I called on another client of mine that's lived in her house, and she wants to move in another area because to be closer to her children, but it's still going to be Florida. She has $40,000 of portability she can carry over. So what does that mean? If her new property in the state of Florida is assessed at $200,000, and she already gets $50,000 for the homestead, the 25 and the 25, that's 50.
Right.
She gets another $40,000 to reduce her tax base. That would be her
Portability from one house to
portability
another.
to
Yeah.
another house that people aren't understanding about, and she was not even aware of this.
No. And, you know, I don't think anybody, if you don't tell them, Vic, it's not everybody understands it. It's not something that is automatically told by closing agents or attorneys
Well,
or
her other
anybody.
real estate agent didn't even know about
Let's
it.
Yeah,
spend
yeah.
a little more time on that. Give reasons behind that. So we're having someone in house A and they sell it. What are they bringing across to the new house? What is
Well, they have a certain formula that they use so I have to call in because I wouldn't know how
Each
to
house
each
is
house
different,
is
yeah.
different.
Okay.
Because like I said once before, and I don't think you were on the show the day we talked about
I wasn't.
portability,
He's in the hospital
he
playing,
was,
you
poor
know,
thing. Yeah, he
making
didn't even have the
Mercedes
radio
payments for
show on in the
doctors, yeah.
hospital. What a man, right? I would have told that nurse to go get that show going.
That's it.
So, and you know I would. So the thing of it is I had
Luckily,
one client.
she didn't know which hospital you're in. She would have been there with the remote going.
Yeah. Well, where are you today? Oh,
Dan,
I'm here every
what do
day.
you mean
I'm
you
at the
can't talk?
hospital.
You're under anesthesia.
Yeah, he was feeling good. Depends on what you say. I'm always afraid I'm going to tell people secrets when I'm
secrets?
put down, to sleep.
So the portability factor, everybody, do you have to live in a house for a period of time?
Well, yes. So let's talk about the other gentleman that only had like 16,000. Even though he's had many homes and was born and raised in this area, it's how long you live in the house is the more time you've lived in it and had the homestead, the more you're going to have.
portability you have.
And that's why she had 40,000 and he only had 16,000.
Gotcha.
So hers almost doubled because of that being in it.
Does it go up based on your involvement in this? Is the more expensive the house you have in, does that normally give you a higher portability?
Well, I don't think it really works that way.
Doesn't work on the value
Yeah,
of the
no,
house.
I think it's the time that you've spent in your home and how long you've had a homestead, and they generate it.
So let's suppose a listener is listening to this and he goes, "Boy, I never heard of that," and
Call in.
and I didn't do that when I bought my house 2 years ago. Is there a time limit on that?
They've never said anything, and I'm going to tell you the interesting story. Even when I called the tax department to find out about the portability, one of the girls, and this has been going on for a while, said, I don't even understand it that well. Let me transfer you to this girl. So there's not even
Sure.
a lot of people there that I think are using their portability.
Absolutely.
I guess it's on the questionnaire when you go to file for your homestead, but a lot of people overlook it. And you should check it off to know, because it is going to make a big difference on
Well,
your
the
taxes.
key is if they don't know what the question means, and it's either yes or no,
They don't even know what portability
Yeah,
is, so they
right,
don't even
right,
answer
right,
it,
right,
right?
right.
But we have to be careful with property taxes because this is the thing people don't understand. The first thing they say, well, when they're looking at the properties that I'm selling them in a resale, I've lived in my house since '91. My taxes are going to be a lot lower than somebody in my neighborhood that just bought a couple of years ago.
That's true.
So
yeah.
everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to buy this house, your house, because your taxes are a lot lower than the guy down the street." I tell people, don't base taxes on that. Base it on what the new assessed value is going to be.
Yeah.
That's because they can only bring yours up 3% a year. if
That's
it's
what I tell
homesteaded.
people. That's right. So once you file for that homestead, so they're going to buy my home that's already homesteaded. They're going to take advantage of that the first year because they're only going to prorate those taxes for the first year.
That's
but it's
right.
going to be reassessed the second year.
Exactly.
We're always 1 year behind in our property
Right.
taxes. It throws people off because everybody up north pays a year ahead.
Yep.
The only thing we pay a year ahead on is our homeowner's insurance, which is always paid a year ahead,
Yeah.
and our assessment value where they assess the swales in the front of your property. Those are your assessment value. Those are a year ahead.
340.
Wow.
Look at Greg.
Amazing.
You are living proof that an old person can be educated.
Hey, I'm living proof. I just learned something new.
Very good.
What did you learn?
I learned about this.
Portability.
The portability had all these different factors in it, so I can't really give them a clean cut answer. It's like
No,
you
you gotta
have
call
to go in and
So
call
did
in
you
and see.
did you do your
Oh,
portability?
yes. But I don't
How
know.
much did you get? Do you remember?
My accountant helped me.
And
do
are you
that.
sure you got it?
That I can't say.
See, you're not sure.
You know,
so check and make
I
sure
hire
you did.
so
Yeah,
many
but he's
people to do things for me, and I assume it gets done. I don't know.
Don't ever assume. I've
Well,
learned
I
that.
know.
We
I assume that
know
that
what
Lowe's,
we know what assume means,
I
right?
assumed Lowe's was going to do a quick delivery today, And they were supposed to call yesterday to tell me it's not to my house, but where
You
there's
see,
construction.
in defense of Dan, he's married to Nancy.
She's really good at
And Nancy doesn't miss any of this stuff. She's tough. She gets it. So hey,
Is that what the whip marks are? I thought
That's
they were
what-
stripes on
yeah,
your
yeah,
shirt.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not
yeah.
stripes.
340-1590, 340-1590. I had a couple. We're almost out of time here, I think, aren't we, Dad? What's that mean? 3 minutes? See, I like the way he holds his fingers different directions.
He does, up,
If he holds
down.
them upside down, I got to read between the lines.
It looked like
sometimes.
gang symbols.
Well, one of the things that happened, I had a lady that actually was a listener, not to this show, but our other show, that went into her bank, and she had some stock that she had received from a company as part of a retirement package, and the bank right away said, "Oh, that's qualified money, and you got to roll this, you got to do that." Well, what they did not do was check to find out if they're telling her the truth. So what I normally do with somebody when they walk in the door with something, if I'm not 100% sure, I get on the phone and I call that direct and I say, "Hey, what's the story? Is this money that's never been taxed? Is it partial of it's taxed? What's the percentage that has been? What's the percentage that's not?" One of the things that happens whenever you as a consumer have a question, you can ask a person like me or any other person that's a competitor of mine or any bank or whatever it might be, and if they give you an answer immediately without doing any research on it, I'd be a little bit worried.
I would too, absolutely.
So what I normally do is I make a phone call right then if it's during the line and call people up and say, "Hey, let's put it on a speaker and we'll ask them questions and let's find out what the right answer is." So just you know what happens, Dan? I think we said this before. You're in the business 40 years. You think you've heard everything. Bigger than I'll get out. There's always something new that comes along. And we have a caller, Rex. It's Joe MARTEK.
Make it quick, Rex.
You're on the radio.
Okay, I'm disabled. Is there anything that will reduce my taxes on my home?
Okay, what are you? I didn't hear you, Rex.
He's disabled.
Oh, you're disabled. Yes, please call them. There is. She said there's for people that are disabled. There's people that have lost limbs. There's
They have extra
for
deductions
widows,
over and above the standard ones.
Absolutely. So you must call. There's many of them. She had a whole list.
Yeah. Whoever, call the tax department, whichever county you're in, and say, "Hey, what do I do in order to get all of these disability benefits?"
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for calling, Rex. That's another one. It's a good one.
And if he does find out, it'd be great for him to call us back.
Yeah.
Let us know what he find out.
Yeah, Rex, if you can do that, whatever. Because it's different types, and Vicky, you just said it, different types of disabilities that qualify for different type of tax breaks.
For 1 limb, 2 limbs, 4 limbs
Yeah.
that you've lost, the girl told me there's.
Do they have
credit.
deductions for Italians?
Yes, absolutely.
That's right.
And Vic, there also help for people with disabilities to buy homes in Florida. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
340-1590. We're down to our last 20 seconds or so we're supposed to say goodbye. Say
Bye,
goodbye.
folks.
Say
Until
goodbye.
next week. Bye.
Till next week. Good show. We need another episode.
You've been listening to the Team MARTEK Hour. The Team MARTEK Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team MARTEK Hour here on WPSL 1590.
WPSL Port St. Lucie.